All right, all of you wonderful boys and girls from wherever you are on this glorious blue planet of ours, welcome to the first episode of Mission Critical Podcast, starring your hosts, me, myself, Mark. We'll talk more about who I am. And then this other gentleman, he's over here someplace on the computer. His beard isn't as sexy as mine, but it is red, aka Redbeard Jeremy. Jeremy, say hi to everybody.
Hey, what's going on? This is it's kind of a big deal, right, Mark? This is kind of a big deal. It's been a labor of love, I would say. So we're finally here.
Well, it is a labor of love if you love the things that you hate. And by that, I mean, if anyone's watching, Jeremy's got a real life and I've got a real life and everybody's busy, just like I'm sure all of you boys and girls are. And this has been a labor of love, but you got to put a lot of effort into love. I mean, I know it seems weird. We really haven't had much of a social media presence, but it's because, again, we're just busy and there's a million things to do. So we finally were able to scratch out some time today on, matter of fact, it is Tuesday, the 25th of April. Yes, and it's basically 1800 Central Daylight Time, which, Jeremy, we have to have a separate podcast about daylight time. I'm so sick of daylight savings time.
Oh, and by the way, 24-hour clock master race. I'm just saying.
Okay, well, I agree with you.
Is like the greatest thing in the world.
All right, well, because there's 24 hours in the day, so
right. Makes sense.
That's always one of my favorites. Oh, you're in the military? I'm like, no, there's 24 hours in the day. I don't really. All right. Anyway, see, boys and girls. So if you're watching this, this is our first podcast. We're going to sit here and tell you a little bit about who we are, what we're doing, why we're doing it. All the, 5 W's, who, what, when, where, why, how many, all that kind of stuff. And then, but we are going to have some content here at the end. There's a subject that Jeremy and I have been talking about since it actually broke, I think 2-3 weeks ago. And it's interestingly, to me anyway, it's no longer in the media. So we will have some content to give you a sense of what the podcast is going to look like. But Jeremy, I'm just going to say this and I'll come back over to you. But here, boys and girls, first and foremost, thank you for coming, for being here and watching this. I'm a small business owner, and so I have to rely on social media for advertising. If it wasn't for me owning a business, I wouldn't be on social media at all, because you don't care what I had for breakfast or what, the clothes I bought or that kind of stuff, unless we know each other. Then and for me, the type of person I am, and see, it's a great segue. We didn't even plan this. Why are we doing this podcast? Well, the type of person I am is I'll share that stuff with the people who I speak with every day, or the people who are part of my life. But no offense to anyone else out there, but do you really care what I had for breakfast? Or, you see what I'm saying, Jeremy? Does that make sense? Or why don't you take it from there, and then we'll get into the meat of the issue. Oh, no, I'm sorry. One thing, Jeremy, sorry.
Yep.
For this podcast and this podcast only, I don't know if I'm going to do this in the future. This is something that I was doing on Centerline Systems, but right now, everybody, I'm just having a glass of Cabernet, and I'm a wine drinker, but I kind of really like Cabernet. And so I'm just raising my glass to everybody out there. If you are watching this video, take a pause, go pour yourself an adult beverage. If that's your thing, Jeremy, he's drinking water or some Mountain Dew or some shit, but coffee. Yeah. But anyway, in the future, I don't know, Jeremy, if I'm going to be doing the whole, what are you drinking in the future? I think, and see, boys and girls, if you've watched any of my previous videos or the videos that Jeremy and I have done with each other, you'll already see what I'm getting at is, like, there's so much going on in the world. There's so many things that are of importance that we as human beings, I don't give a shit about your politics. If you're a human being, well, then you should know the difference between right and wrong. I would hope so. Although there's an argument that no one ever does. These are learned, but we'll save that for a little bit later. But in the right here and right now, these are some serious conversations that we're going to have. And that's why we're doing the podcast. Again, jumping ahead a little bit, but in the meantime, we'll flesh this out a little bit more. Before I turn it over to Jeremy, let me just, because I already kind of started doing this, so let me just finish. So here's the format for this first video. We're going to introduce ourselves, tell a little bit about who we are, and then the 5W2H about why we're doing this podcast. And then we're going to have some content in the podcast itself. watch the whole video because there's going to be a couple little gems in there that you're going to want to pick up in this first episode. Maybe this is the housekeeping episode, Jeremy. Is that, what do you think?
Yeah.
Maybe we just title this episode 1, housekeeping.
Yeah. Yeah. I, it's one of those things too, to where like so in going through some of the stuff here too, like we'll get into our introductions and our backgrounds and stuff like that here in a minute. But I want to also put out there too that we will be elaborating in this particular episode further of why we are doing what we're doing, and furthermore why we are pursuing the actions or the activities or whatever you want to call it that we're going to be doing, because it's very relevant to what we are about as a podcast. And it's,
yes.
And it's definitely a mindset, but at the same time, anybody can have a various amount of thoughts, but at the same time, it's like if you have principles, if you have morals, if you have all of these different things, but you're doing nothing to put into effect those through action, then it's kind of bupkis. But we'll delve more into that as after we start to develop this here in a couple minutes. So
well, okay, but that's a nice segue. So how about we just roll with it right then and there?
Yep.
Right. So how about you take a couple seconds,
Sure.
Tell everybody a little bit about you. I've just got to step off screen for 1 second.
Yep.
Tell everybody a little bit about yourself, and then I'll come back. I'll give a little bit of my background, and then where you just left it, and that'll be a nice segue into, okay, so why are we doing this? Why does this matter? All right.
Right.
All right. Go.
All right. So basically, my name is Jeremy, or Redbeard. I've had the Redbeard for quite a while. It's been a nickname that I've had that's prevailed for quite some time. It's kind of self-explanatory. Basically, I just graduated.
You say it's self-explanatory, but your lighting, right now your beard looks gray to me, so maybe I call you Graybeard. All right, sorry, continue.
Yeah. There's been known to be a stray here and there of the gray nature, so it has happened. I don't know if it was labor work that did that to me or what, but I'm a graduate from a gunsmithing school. Obviously, it's kind of self-explanatory. So I'm a certified gunsmith. In my free time, I try to pursue things that are conducive to just being a better person. I believe in physical fitness. I believe in pursuing things that are going to be skill building endeavors, or something that's going to create more of a purposeful individual as it pertains to me. There's a lot of different considerations when it comes to the world out there, but I feel like if we, at least for myself, taking it upon myself to do some training, whether it's, firearms related or planting a freaking garden, that's my shtick. So basically, I'm kind of a dirty civilian who likes to play with guns and plant a garden every once in a while. So,
all right. So for everybody watching, you just saw me smile. Jeremy and I have talked about this concept, this dirty civilian concept. It's been around for a while, and we've had some very interesting conversations. Private conversations. When we're just personally talking, and I hope that. I hope more of those conversations come out during our podcast. I do believe that those conversations they're both interesting, they're humorous, but they also have like an underlying, there's a bedrock there. I mean, not to jump ahead, Jeremy, let's just say that, but that concept. So Jeremy just said that, kind of like, self-aggrandizing, I'm a dirty civilian. There's actually a lot to that concept. Mm-hmm. And I think that'll come up a little bit as we talk, maybe not in this podcast, but if you stick with us for a while. And by the way, before, I'll bring it back over to Jeremy. Jeremy, I just wanted to say one thing. We're not going to have this down pat. And more importantly, well, here, Jeremy, I'm going to ask you this question, then you kind of wrap up and finish what, your intro.
Yep.
Are you trying to be a YouTuber? Are you doing this in order, like, is this who you are? Do you want to be a YouTuber? Are you trying to be the next Joe Rogan? Why are you doing this right
now? Honestly, just to be able to hopefully spur into action more like-minded people. And I, quite frankly, I would almost say that it's not even always necessarily the like-minded people that I try to capture. It's the people that have different opinions that potentially, we have the ability to reach. And it's one of those things to where if you're, and I've said this, I don't know how many times throughout our podcast and in person and over the phone, but, if more people went out and got to know their neighbors, regardless of the fact that they have different opinions and stuff like that, one, you'll realize there's decent people in the world if you turn your TV off. But two, you can also realize that you can have genuine conversations and be able to shift people's opinions, not by subversive means or anything like that, but simply just by having a conversation with people. And and the other thing is, hopefully through this, my goal at least is to hopefully get people to become invested into what they believe in, principally, or whatever the case might be, to where you take that and then you turn that into some form of constructive action, because it's super easy to tear stuff down and destroy stuff.
Yep.
It's much harder to take your energy and to build something meaningful that's going to stand the test of time. And that's my biggest thing. And we all are going to go after that in different ways, but for me, that's what it is. So.
Well, I like that last comment right there, because again, kind of jumping into the 5 W's, the who, what, when, where, why. That's the why up front, right? Bottom line up front, what Jeremy just said. And I echo that sentiment. It's like, look, at the end of the day, I'm not Joe Rogan. We're not, Dan Bongino, or pick your favorite, YouTuber or a podcast person that you really like. Jocko Link. What's that guy from England's name? Jeremy. I can't.
Oh man,
I like him. Yeah, Russell Brand. I actually I like.
Oh, I get a kick out of him.
Yeah, I do. So I can't speak for Jeremy. I can only speak for myself. So as I go into telling you who I am, like, my goal here isn't to become anybody like that. This isn't what you see right now is what you're going to get. Now it's going to maybe change here in a little bit, because I'm moving, but this isn't going to. For me, this isn't going to turn out to be like, a studio and this is my full-time occupation. I'm just trying to echo Jeremy's comments. Like, there's a reason I'm doing this. There's a reason I think Jeremy's doing this. And those reasons are so similar that we came together and decided we got to make this podcast. And I hope those are the same reasons that have brought you here to listen to this, these two knuckleheads. Now, my beard, I'll kind of look for the camera. My beard is better than his, but anyway, but all right. So I'm Mark. I'm the other part of this clown show here for a podcast. I'm Mark. I'm just going to work from modern day and go backwards. So I own a small business called Centerline Systems. And if you're over here watching this, you probably already know that, because over on my business side, for me, kind of jumping into the, why are we doing this? I'm running a business. I just want to be left alone. I want to be able to do the things that I love to do and try to make some money off of it so I can put milk in my fridge, milk and eggs, and pay my bills. But I love making gear. And so none of you can see this, but I'm looking west right now, and I've got windows to the west and the north, and the snows are starting to melt, and there's already been deer on the field. There's birds of prey coming through. Like, so I love the outdoors, and that's why I love the company Centerline Systems, because we make outdoor gear. And it's not just for hiking and camping. It can be for military, tactical, shit hits the fan, whatever. It's a wide application, and it's gear based on my previous experiences. So just going into that. So I spent almost 10 years, the better part of somewhere, a little over 8 years in the CIA, Central Intelligence Agency. I was an operations officer. I worked in ground branch. There's all kinds of different ways of saying that nowadays, paramilitary officer, But I'm a certified case officer, went to the farm, the whole 9 yards. And then I spent almost all of my career overseas. Barely had any time to, I think just to give you a little personal insight to me, my joke was I was never in America long enough for a second date. I'd meet somebody and I could never say what I was doing or where I was going, because technically Mark, and I'm not giving away sources and methods, but Mark never left the country, even though physically I was somewhere else. Anyway, we'll save that for another time. So the agency, and then 20 years in the military. So, and then before that, I'm a Minnesotan. I'm a Viking. I love this. I hate the politics and the government of my state, but I love the environment, the weather. And matter of fact, Jeremy, just a side note, we'll have to have this conversation as a separate podcast when we should talk about survival. What does it mean to survive in this environment versus a different, in another environment, your age? There's so much more to it. Everybody, and so again, if you're watching this podcast, you've probably seen some of the previous ones I've done over in Centerline Systems, or maybe you've just stumbled and found us for the first time. But again, I want to welcome you here, and I hope that you find the ability to put us in the 3 to 5 podcasts that you can, listen to or watch in the course of your day or during the course of your week. I hope we can, find a way on your bookshelf, so to speak. But on that note, Jeremy, like that's something that we should talk about, because I think that's a great conversation right there. Because one of the things, so boys and girls, my last comment about who I am and why we're doing this podcast. I mean, Jeremy already said this. I mean, look, I've spent the vast majority of my life in the service of this country. I volunteer to do it. So don't say thank you. I mean, you can say thank you, that's appreciated, but I don't want thanks. I don't want anything free. I did this knowingly. I volunteered because I believe in America. I believe in freedom. I believe in a constitutional republic. I believe in our declaration, our constitution. I did this of my own free will. No one put it in my head. But to that point, what does it mean to survive? What does it mean how would you live in Minnesota? Again, I love Minnesota. I've been to a lot of different parts of the world, and to include our country. And I love Minnesota, and so again, I'm kind of a little bit of spoiler. And if you've seen any of my other videos, people, I can kind of go on some tangents. But Jeremy, we should earmark this, because we should have a conversation that should be a podcast of. So you think you're just going to grab your rucksack and walk out in the woods and survive?
Yeah, that's a pretty nuanced, heavy conversation in and of itself. And there's a lot of points that could be easily picked apart, and there's some points that may not be so easily picked apart, or there might be points that me and you both agree with, and we're like, yeah, no, that tracks. So it's one of those conversations that definitely needs its own episode.
But I think the point I want to make on that, and again, so so boys and girls, Jeremy and I are figuring this out as we go, right? Again, we don't have huge studios and support staff and all that stuff. And we have, honestly, just like you, we're too busy. We haven't even had a chance to really sit down and figure out, okay, what is episode 2 going to look like? What's the subject? What's the topic? What's episode 3 or 4? And and I'm kind of, I guess maybe that's a segue, because we're about to talk about what it's going to look like, right? Again, who, what, when, where, why, and how many. So the who, well, you just got it. It's 2 knuckleheads. We both have beards. Jeremy and Mark, we are your hosts. But on that who part, so a little bit about us now, and it'll come out more in future podcasts, or go see some of the videos I've done over on Centerline Systems. But we're also going to bring in guest speakers. Now, we don't know exactly what this is going to look like or the frequency. Right now, we're thinking maybe every 3rd episode we'll bring in a guest speaker. And if you go back again, and I don't want to keep bringing up Centerline Systems, but this is the first video. So it's kind of the introductory video. So go look at some of the playlists over on Centerline Systems, and you'll see these things called rants, ROEs, but you'll see videos where I have guest speakers, and we are going to do that. So everything from other former CIA officers or FBI agents or police officers or military, personnel or small business owners, or quite honestly, anybody who reaches out to us. I mean, look, this is, so here, I guess this is my last thing, Jeremy, about who I am and why I'm doing this podcast is my business. I contact every one of my customers at least once during the whole order process as we're building their gear. And I'm so blessed by that, because, sometimes it's just a business conversation. Hey, we're working on it. We're starting Tuesday. Look for shipping on Friday. And that's as far as the conversation goes. Other times it's like, 30 minutes later, and it's like 1400 in the afternoon, and you're like, God, this guy's awesome, but I can't have a glass of wine yet. I still have work to do. It's too early. So I'm here to tell you. So for many of those people watching, who follow me on Centerline Systems or like our gear, or who start watching this video, I mean, Jeremy and I want to bring you guys on, you guys and gals. So there it is right there. I'm just going to get this out of the way. When I say you guys, I'm using language the way it's meant to be. Guys, it means a group of people, right? In foreign countries and foreign languages, there's even different ways to say that, law or loss or L or, we're not going to get in all that shit. So if you're watching this video and if I say the word guys and it offends you, then stop watching these videos because you're just going to be offended by almost everything we say at this point in time, right? When I say guys, I mean everyone, guys and gals. And that's another reason why I wanted to start doing these videos, because we're entering into a period of time where if I don't define exactly what I'm saying, I could be banned or hung at dawn or something. I'm like, that's ludicrous, right, Jeremy?
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. And it's, it's going to be inherently one of those challenges that we'll face, but, it kind of just comes with the territory at this point. I mean, whether you're on here or you're in a cafe, somebody's going to have a complaint about it. So,
well, I'll save that. I was going to sidetrack us right there, which I'm notorious for. So I'll stop. But all right. So we're going into the who, right? So what I'm really trying to say, boys and girls, is we will have all kinds of other individuals that we'll bring on. And if you're watching this video and maybe you've never spoken with myself or Redbeard and you want to be a part of one of these videos and have a conversation, reach out, right? We've got matter of fact, Jeremy, we got to remember, we have an email address.
Yep.
Kind of again, jumping in so how about we'll just jump right into it. Okay. So who we are, we already talked about that. What are we doing? We're making a podcast.
Yep.
We're going to try to have fun with the podcast, but we're going to talk about serious issues as well. And sometimes maybe the podcast will be, because I don't want to just sit and talk in politics all the time. Right. Like I personally, I like UFOs. I like cryptids. There's so much stuff here's what I also like. I was up until 2 o'clock this morning, talking to a customer from Japan. I don't speak Japanese. I can speak a little bit of Spanish and a little bit of German. I used to be really good, but I just don't, I haven't done it in a long time, but my German and my Spanish, if you're a customer of mine, you probably, and if you're from Germany, you've heard me call you up and start talking to you in German. And then you laugh at me and say, okay, nice try, but pretty good, but let's go to English, or the same with my Spanish. Hey, nice try, but let's go over to, but I can still get by. But Japanese, I'd never spoken a word in Japanese in my life, although I love Japanese cinema and I would watch it in Japanese, but I was trying to communicate with a guy from Japan last night this morning at 2 a.m. So what I'm getting at is maybe that guy comes on the podcast, right? You know what I'm saying? Like you just don't know. You just end up meeting so many cool people and you end up doing things that you don't really plan for. Well, then why not capitalize on that? Right. So Jeremy, makes sense. I've been rambling a little bit. Why don't you?
And I think too, like, and I feel like if you can get people, because I think a lot of the matters for as specific as for as many of our issues that we have are specific to the United States. I at least in some context, I do believe that there are worldly views out there that can be a great contribution to what it is that we're trying to do. Because in the end of the day, like our big thing is, when we talk about a lot of these different things, we're examining them, through the litmus test of liberty. Does it make sense? If it violates liberty, if it violates your right to self-determination, if it violates these things, does it make sense? And granted, like me and Mark were born into a country and a culture that, like that's the fabric of our country. It's been incessantly like pounded into us in one way or avenue of approach or another, right? Like whether we, meandered into it or whether we were fortunate enough to have good teachers back in the day, who knows? But having people that come in with a different perspective, especially like, and I've always been very curious because we see a lot about Europe, but it would be interesting also to have an Asian or Pacific Islander type individual come in, because their politics and their evaluations on certain things, they may be similar to their individual purview and be like, yeah, no, this is what's wrong. Or they might be like, look, like this has kind of worked for us and we've never really thought about it. And I think that's important to the whole overall conversation of it. And so, yeah, I 100%, Mark, I think it would be kind of cool to have that, especially when you talk with people from around the world that use your gear and learning about like even I hate, I guess I don't hate to say it, but it's okay. What are you doing with that type of gear, and how are you applying it to your daily life? Like, is it improving your life in this way or that? Because, dude, in the end of the day, I love to learn about people and cultures because it enriches
Yep.
my life and helps gain a better understanding of why we do what we do here, right? Like I will say there are cultures that through time have, while they may have changed to a certain degree, are very robust cultures. Whereas like the United States, we've got some introspection to do here.
All right. I see.
So I'll leave it at that.
Well, and I'm laughing because all I was thinking was like, so boys and girls, again, if you haven't watched any of my videos or the videos that Jeremy and I just did recently over on Centerline System, if you're not picking up what's going on right now, I'm here to tell you, like, already what Jeremy's saying, we could just spend the next 2 hours just talking about just that right there. It's so there's so many great things to discuss and talk about, but I want to bring this back on point. You know, we're going to be a little bit kind of stiff this first time around because we just kind of want to lay out some of the foundations. But to Jeremy's point, and Jeremy, there was two things that you said that I really love, right? So you're talking about like, this is the fiber of who we are, right? So America, what is America, right? And that is going to be an underlying tenet of all, of many of our podcasts. America, freedom, right? We are unique. And no offense to anybody else out there. Like, God bless you guys. You have your own culture. But you know what our culture is? Our culture is everyone else's culture in the world coming together under the umbrella of freedom. That's whether you love America or hate America, it's impossible, in my opinion, to argue that we're not unique. There's not been a country that we know of anyway, in the history of humanity that had a Bill of Rights, a Declaration of Independence, a document that is so powerful and well written. And for anyone who's watching, if you want to like, oh, what slave? I'm like, fuck you. I'm sorry. As a matter of fact, that's the other thing I'm going to do. I'm not going to swear, Jeremy, going forward. I'm really going to try to cut that down a little bit. Although I'm going to try and be a good, I really don't drop F-bombs in my normal day to day. It's when I'm in front of the camera because seriously, this isn't my thing, baby. So, but so I love that, right? You're talking about the fiber of who we are. And I think those are great conversations to explore. And that goes in everything from like, well, how do you guys deal with fishing, or how do you guys camp, or what do you do with traffic? I mean, like the Italians would be like, traffic, what is that? We just drive wherever we want to drive, and if you're Italian, you're watching this, and if you live in Italy, you know what I'm talking about. That was a good natured ribbon, right? But it's kind of true. You guys are horrible drivers, and you do your own thing. But the second part though, Jeremy, is like, it's that bringing people from around the world in, if we're able to do it. It's so beneficial because I'm here to tell you, boys and girls, the perspective that you have is based on the expanse of your understanding or your experiences. And if you only live in this microcosm of, so before we started this video, Jeremy and I were talking about Minnesota, and already kind of talked about it a little bit here tonight. I love Minnesota, but if I only know this little part of the world, how much do I really know? I mean, how enlightened or open-minded, and I don't even like using that phrase. You could still be an incredibly open-minded person. Where I grew up as a kid in northern Minnesota, when I was a child growing up, there was only one black family in my whole county, right? And that was the sheriff. But I knew that. I didn't know him, but my dad knew him. So I kind of then by default was around the guy, and I knew that the gentleman. I didn't grow up with racism in my bones. I like, okay, yeah, there's black people in the world, right? Again, I'm a child of I was born in the late 60s, but it's northern Minnesota. It's not, it just isn't culturally where you find a lot of black people. It's fucking 40 below zero. I'm surprised you even find any humans in that weather, let alone like a melanin content, but that never didn't change anything, when I went to basic training, I was 17 years old in basic training, and all kinds of people from all different walks of life.
Yep.
I was probably the fucking rube, you know, it's like, cause I didn't know anything other than my little microcosm of northern Minnesota for 17 years of my life, right? Where there was no other, we didn't have Chinese food. We didn't have, you know, none of that stuff existed. It was a very different world. So that shapes who I am. But I didn't grow up as a bigot. And I didn't grow up as a racist. You know, like I grew up to, hey, you either are a person who has the character and the quality, and I respect that, or you don't. Plain and simple. So to bring in this kind of full circle, so boys and girls, if you're watching this video or if you're dealing with me at Centerline Systems and I'm talking to you, you might get an invitation. You don't be surprised. And so going back into who's going to be on the program, I would like it. And Jeremy and I have talked about this, and I'll shut up in a second. He can chime in too. But like, so I still have a whole bunch of friends from a completely different world than the world I'm living in right now. If you were over in Centerline Systems, you've probably seen some of them in a few of the videos. Again, former CIA officers, FBI agents, law enforcement, you know, da. But I also want to bring on a lot of the customers that I get to talk to, small business owners. Individuals with just strong opinions, maybe with which I may or may not agree. So, Jeremy, is that what so going into what we're trying to accomplish and how we're going to do it and who's going to be on the program,
right?
Like, you know, what are your thoughts on that?
No, and I think that's essentially what it is. You know, we're doing this to provide a kind of a platform, if you will, for people to challenge their beliefs and to challenge other people's beliefs and principles and
sorry to interrupt, but not just to hear from me and you. Like, let's have somebody from Australia. Let's have somebody from Japan. Let's have somebody from Canada. So let's hear other opinions or the opinions of people from very different cultures and legal systems, that kind of stuff, right?
Yep. Yeah, okay. and that, you know, that harkens back to that point I was talking about earlier, which is, you know, when you really examine things, you know, like we as people within the United States, you know, we are introduced, or at least still when I was going to school, we were introduced to this idea of liberty and rights and what America is supposed to be, and like moreover, like, as individuals, what is within the fiber of our heritage. And that's it, that in and of itself, like that foundation is very, very specific and significant to who we are as a people. It's what we are as a people. And beyond that, though, if you go to a place like Germany, if you go to a place like Russia, if you go to a place like China, or any of the Korea, you know, either North or South Korea, or wherever it is that you end up, their way and their perception of certain things is going to be different. And it doesn't even necessarily, like, you can find that just in the United States alone, because by default, I mean, with the way the states are set up, they are their own sovereign entities. So in the end of the day,
did you hang on? I'm sorry to interrupt you. Did you just throw that out there intentionally so you could get a plug-in for like separation of powers, states' rights? You know, which I'm kind of jumping the gun a little bit because we already talked about this of how we want to do this podcast, and you know, I don't want to like, it's not putting the cart before the horse, and I don't know if I want to give too much away, but I just had to say this. So everybody, I just interrupted Jeremy. I couldn't help it. I got to give him shit because look, Jeremy's a constitutionalist, and so am I. I believe in freedom. I believe in the rule of law. But everything that Jeremy was just talking about, and see, as he was saying this, and he mentioned all these other countries, where my brain was going was like, yeah, and within those countries, if they're large enough, you'll still have all kinds of microcosms, or, you know, micro cultures, because they're all different. You know, like America, we have 50 states. You could actually make a pretty solid argument that we're probably actually, I don't know, Jeremy, we're not 50 different cultures, but we're probably like 30 different cultures, you know, give or take. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, you know?
Yeah, in the very least, you know, and it's in, you know, there's some areas which are, you know, they kind of grow off of each other, if you will.
Yeah, overlap a little bit, if you will.
Right. Yeah. You know, like let's be honest, and I'm gonna throw our state and Wisconsin under the bus. If you were to set up two Kathys, one from Minnesota and one from Wisconsin, tell me the difference.
Cheese curds versus thinking ketchup is hot sauce. I don't know.
and they all come around to basically saying, "Oh crap," the same way.
Yeah. Oh crap, eh? You betcha.
Oh crap.
All right. Hey, back on track. We're at 35 minutes right now. And seriously, we're trying to keep this to an hour and a half for tonight. And so on that, here, bringing it back in. Okay, so we already told you who we are. We already told you what we're trying to accomplish here. At the end of the day, I think the bottom line, Jeremy already said it. I'll see if I can paraphrase it appropriately. We're men. We're men of the West. We're men of the world. We're human beings. And there's just no way I can be silent anymore. There's no way I can sit on my rest on the, and I don't even have laurels to rest on, if you want to use that old, kind of terminology, but I can't just sit here and pretend nothing's going on around me in the world. Right. And if you're watching this video, or if you're like us, if you think this way, or even if you don't, I still want to have that conversation, but we're all on this awesome blue planet together, and we've better figure this shit out or we're going to be doomed. And, so to that note, what does it really look like? Well, to be determined, right? Sometimes it'll be political. Sometimes it'll be more humorous and fun things, or it'll be things that are interest of us, like Jeremy with his background. And look, Jeremy is a gunsmith, right? Just finished. And that's the career path he's going on. I'm not a gunsmith, but I've obviously, been around weapon platforms for I'm 55, 30 out of 55 years. You guys do the math. I'm too tired because I'm a small business owner. I can't do the math with that percentages, but obviously I've been around weapons platforms. So there'll be times we could talk about that kind of stuff. And, and Jeremy and the other guests might be going into the coefficients of ballistic property X, or, whatever. And I'll just call them dweebs and say, well, can you shoot it at night or under, whatever, but it'll be that kind of stuff. And hopefully we'll be able to bring, you great guys and gals on board, or other guest speakers. We'll probably do that again. Maybe we'll do it. We haven't figured it out. I mean, Jeremy, 1 out of 3, 1 out of 4, or maybe, 1 out of 2. I don't know. We're going to figure it out. So just bear with us. We'll bring on a whole bunch of interesting people, to include you. If you reach out to us, want to be a part of the program. The other thing is, we kind of, again, we already talked about what we're doing. So when are we going to do this? I think we're kind of looking at if everything works out, because we're human beings and we've got lives to live, and we got to make money to, put gas in the vehicle and, and eggs in the fridge. Once, hopefully, Jeremy, I'd like to do this twice a week is what I'd like to do. Are you still on board with that?
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. That's tentatively what my plan is. So,
okay. So, and then the where. Now that's the big where is, so where can you watch this or listen to it? Yep. That is still a work in progress. For some reason, we're locked out of our Twitter account right now.
We literally just started.
Yes, really. I don't know how we're locked out. I mean, we just made the damn account. We're already locked out. But so we got to figure out some things. But for in the short period of time, videos will be up on Rumble and YouTube. So if you're watching this video, you're on one of those platforms. We're looking at BitChute and Odyssey. We got to figure that out. YouTube, Instagram, Twitter for those type of posts. Well, Twitter. Why are we locked out?
Tentatively Twitter at this.
Yeah, tentatively Twitter. We'll see. Maybe Minds or something like that. So just stay tuned. Right. There's the takeaway.
And
if you go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, and we're still. I think it's going to take more work, but it would be. We're tentatively still going to try and do Spotify, but Spotify's a whole different can of worms too. But it would be ideal to do Spotify, just with how the platform is, and they're a fairly forgiving platform when it comes to actually being able to have a podcast about what you want to talk about. So, but that's also tentative, because that's going to take a little bit more work, I think, than both Rumble and some of these. But we do have a lot coming. It's just going to take a little time, so bear with us on that.
Well, so there's a great takeaway that I want to express, because it kind of it touches my heart from the business side. I am a small business owner. Like, this isn't some made in China.
Mhm.
I've got a million employees. I mean, like, look, and if you're watching this video, for everybody who is watching this or whatever, dude, you have a life too. Life is
Mhm.
tough. Life isn't supposed to be easy. I'm
Right.
not Elon Musk. I don't have billions of dollars to throw at this. Jeremy and I are literally try to make do. Like, what did Churchill say? Do the best you can with what you have wherever you are. That's what
Mhm.
we're trying to do, because the underlying emphasis here is like, it's not about what this looks like. It isn't about
Yep.
a green screen in the background, or Jeremy's got, like, bikini snap bells and whistles over on his side or something like that. It's about the content. It's about the human
Mhm.
interaction. It's about, let's have an adult conversation about something that might be uncomfortable or
Right.
controversial or just fun to talk about. Again, UFOs. I may have just thrown this on Jeremy tonight, but, like, he knows it. But, like, I love talking about UFOs and cryptids. So there's just no way that's not going to be a podcast at some point, right? Just like Jeremy wants to talk about the ballistic coefficient of a black 308 blackout versus, a 762 by 39 or whatever geek ass shit he wants to talk about from his armorer perspective. Dude, you got
Complete.
nothing? I thought you would at least smile about that. Nothing?
Complete. Well, I'm gonna feed into your cryptid
Okay.
thing.
All right.
But we're not gonna sidetrack on this. But I
Dude, we
read
already have
a
sidetracked so much.
yeah, we're gonna have to
Yeah, we're
bring
good.
it back on
We're good
track.
though.
But
We're good.
anyways, so I sat
Sidetracked.
down as I was gonna have some chicken tenders as one does. And
Those aren't, you mean Hot Pockets?
no
Oh, okay.
chicken
All right, just
tendies.
throwing that out there.
Um, in like the good size ones, not like the tiny, like fraudulent little McDonald's size ones either, from a reputable source locally.
Okay.
Um,
By the way, boys and girls, just Jeremy didn't throw this out there, but watch our previous videos. I mean, just not to. I mean, he's already said it, so I can echo this. Now, I've never had his father's cooking, but Jeremy's dad is like supposedly, reportedly, reputedly a really good chef. So I just love what Jeremy he didn't talk about
yeah,
McDonald's chicken nuggets. He's talking about real. So Jeremy probably knows what the hell he's
yeah.
talking about when it comes to food. I'm just saying.
I'm just mild disclaimer. He may or may not. Well, yeah, I'll just leave it at he may or may not have been featured on Diners, Drive-ins, and Dives, and I may or may not have personally met Guy Fieri, but that's another story for another
Okay.
time.
That's like, see, hang on. So there it is right there, boys and girls. You're seeing it here first. Jeremy, that's got to be an episode. Just talking
Yeah.
about food. So here would be the subject. Let's have an episode and let's talk about what it means to be a man
Mhm.
and how you should, as a man, and this is my opinion, you
Mhm.
better know how to cook at least 5 or 10 dishes. And you
Yeah.
need to know how to cook those, like, to impress a first date or something. Like,
Yeah.
that is a manly thing to do, is to
Right.
know how to cook, how to butcher animal. That is a manly thing to do. I don't care if you just made a great penne pasta or your homemade. Dude, you better have some of that stuff in your hip pocket, plain and simple.
Yep.
If you're a real man, anyway, in my humble opinion.
Right. Well, and so to kind of circle around for Mark's cryptid addiction here, which I to be fair, I love the cryptid situation myself, but there was a story out of Texas where 6 cows were found dead, and all 6 of them had their tongues removed with no blood, no tracks, no nothing. Investigators have no idea what's going on. And I'm saying either Skinwalker or Chupacabra or something like I'm invested, dude.
Okay,
And I'm
hang on.
telling you right
Are you
now.
talking? Are you talking about the event that just took place, like, within the last week? Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, like
Yeah.
there's six cows
Yeah.
found,
Yeah.
and I'm like, dude, like, to me, knowing the fact that there was something that did that and left 0 trace should skeeve any normal person out, because there is stuff beyond our comprehension in this world. I don't even care if it was a microorganism that dissolved that tongue. That is worse than a brain-eating amoeba. Like, let's be like, oh God, but yeah, no,
Yeah. Yeah. Let's save
yeah,
that for an episode, because, see, I already want to respond to it. I'm like, well, hang on.
yeah.
We don't know enough yet. I mean, like, there's unknown, like, it could have been a cult. It could have been
Yep.
there's so many, we just don't know enough yet.
Dude,
But
it's
it's
so wild.
awesome that it's making news, and that the sheriff's department down there is taking seriously. Like, hey, dude, something happened here. Like, so yeah. But let's see. But boys and girls, so you're getting a sense. These are the types of, like, so what are we going to talk about? Where you're kind of getting, well, you haven't got all of it, but you're getting the idea, the picture. And especially if you saw me over in Centerline Systems, outside of the gear, and we might even do some gear related videos. Well, I know I want to sit and talk about what it means to be made in America versus assembled in America, and all the bullshit that's going on within our economic system, and how we can trace this all the way back to the 60s during the Nixon administration, blah, blah, blah. But so you see the what now. Well, hopefully you're getting a perspective, and you're already kind of getting a perspective that, we are knuckleheads, but we have beards.
Yeah.
And men with beards should be taken seriously.
Yep. That's right.
Can we make that our thing? Can we do this when we want to be serious? We court. Yeah. Well, see, yours is fuller. You can do that. I'm just still one finger.
You're getting there though.
Yeah, I'm working on it.
But
all right, but getting us back on track. So the where, we're figuring that out. But as of right now, we're posting on Instagram. We'll have some links in the video below if you haven't followed us on Instagram. Basically, it's so we are Mission Critical Podcast. And for most platforms, you can either type in Mission Critical Podcast, or it's going to be Mike M, the letter M, phonetically spoken as Mike, McriticalP, phonetically Papa, Mike Critical Papa, McriticalP at whatever it is. That's where you can find us. Well, if Twitter unlocks our frozen account, we haven't even done anything over there yet. We're already banned, but that's where we're going to be. And then we already told you a little bit of the why, and I'm just going to kind of put a bow on this from my perspective, and then Jeremy, you can finish up with your own bow on the why. But it's like, because I just can't be silent anymore. I spent 30 years of my life in the service of this great nation, and I'm looking around, and I don't even know how to describe it adequately. So I can't do it in a sentence, and I can't do it in one episode. And that's why we're here, because I just feel like I talk to so many people throughout the course of the week, and there's so many great people out there, and yet there's so much evil taking place. And the great people are out there. Being great doesn't mean we agree. Being great means that, when we disagree, we can still figure out, like, okay, we know that we need to build bridges. Mark's got his idea of how to build bridges. I have my idea to build bridges. The ultimate goal is we need bridges for our community. Let's figure out how to do it, right? And we can move past our differences, and we can have a debate, and not a fight, but an argument, a debate. And we present facts as cogent, adult, rational human beings. And we lay those facts out there, we examine them, and we come up with a compromise, a solution, right? Because, okay, I'm not going to get everything I want, but Jeremy's offering me 55% of what I want. And I'm okay with the things I have to concede to him, because, okay, I normally wouldn't have done that, but it makes sense. I see where he's going with that. Yeah. And that's a good thing too. So let's just do that. Where did that go wrong, Jeremy? I'm sidetracking us now, but like, there it is. Like, where did that ever go wrong in life? Isn't that how it's supposed to work?
Well,
I thought anyway.
One could say that in a a system that has a sense of value. Sure. And this is, and this is going to kind of fold into like my little bow on this whole thing, is we have gotten to a point as a culture and a society where we have lost like intrinsic value in certain things, right? And so because we have no metric or a real like identifier anymore for value, we're having to re-examine what the value is. And that's not to say that we couldn't go back and examine, documentation and stuff like that to kind of give us a bearing. But I feel like in a general sense of society, we've lost this idea of value. And now where I would go with this myself is I believe that individuals have value. And that value is not predicated simply on thoughts, but it's predicated in what we do with those thoughts, in our actions that coincide with those thoughts. So as a result, how I have value is going to be different than how Mark has value, and it doesn't make him less valuable per se. But it's just it could be a differing value. It could be a complementary value. However, it tends to work. Now, I do feel like if you sit there and you espouse certain things and you do nothing with it, that I think is where you kind of get that lesser value, because it's like, okay, it's easy to sit there and talk about things and complain about things and go on, but what are you doing to actually constructively add value, not only to yourself but that situation? And so, you know, for
Hey,
me, I feel like that we're at a point in time in not only our country but in this world where people are kind of, I think there's more and more people doing some soul searching on that, on finding that value. And that to me is, what I would tell people is, look, if you want to get the most out of your life and have value to add to other people, a lot of it has to start with being, learn skills. Skills are extremely important, not only for creating a livelihood, but also sustaining a livelihood and sustaining yourself and your family. Um, I would say that part of those valuations tend to be like, okay, you have a livelihood, you have property, but do you have the means or the ability to adequately defend that property and that livelihood? If you don't have that and you're refusing to take that upon yourself, then you have lesser value to a certain degree than somebody that can contribute to a common defense of property. Because in the grand scheme of things, if I can do that and my neighbors can do that, barring one neighbor, who is going to intrinsically have more value to the security of your neighborhood? You and all of the neighbors that take that in a concerted effort, but it's not going to be the person that's mooching off of that security. And here's the thing, right? You don't have to be a high speed soft dude to add security value. It could be something as simple as just being eyes open and aware and being like, I haven't seen this vehicle in our neighborhood before. That's kind of weird. And you examine certain things like that. And if it starts to become habitual when you've never seen that, there might be something afoot, or
I gotta stop you.
yeah,
And I hate to say it this way, but and you and I, and I'm just as guilty. We're
yeah,
going to have to work on not going too far afield.
yep,
But so I have to take you back to something you just said a few minutes ago. So
yeah,
Jeremy said the word soft. For those who don't know what he meant, he said special
mhm,
operations or special operations
mhm,
forces. It basically, special forces,
mhm,
elite units type of thing. So Jeremy, we do need to go when we go forward. We're going to have to just say it out once, like, hey,
yep,
whatever, CIA, Central
yep,
Intelligence Agency, because there are going to be some people who
right,
don't know what the hell that means, or
yep,
SOF, or a different acronym. So we're in a
yep,
world where I knew what you're saying. You know
yep,
what I'm saying when I use it, but
right,
there's a lot of people we don't know what we don't know. So we're
right,
going to have to do that. But the other reason I slowed you down is because, my God, man, that's another podcast right there where
yeah,
you're going. It's like and if we and I just went into a little fantasy world, but because that's stoicism, what you're
yeah,
talking about. And that's another thing, dude, we could bring somebody on who has studied, what the fuck is that Roman guy? Marcus Aurelius,
yep,
the father of see, you see what I'm saying?
yep,
That would be a great podcast, because you're already taking us into a different direction, and that direction is
yeah,
the direction of stoicism. And
yep,
now you're focusing it on from your perspective of,
yep,
the ability to defend your
yeah,
community. And at the end of the day,
yeah.
that's
Or
probably
other like skills that add value to you as a
yep,
person. So
yep.
you're an asset, you're not a liability.
There it is. Yeah, you're an asset, or as Jack over at Black Scout says, an asset or an ass hat, right? You
Mhm.
want to be an asset, not an ass hat, right?
Right?
So, but let's kind of, dude, I freaking love it, and I'm sorry for
Yeah,
cutting you off, but because I hope you're writing notes. Like, we got to do stoicism, be an asset, everything you're saying right there.
yep,
That's a whole nother. Honestly, off the top of my head, right there, that's at least 4 different podcasts right there.
yeah, 100%.
And if we could get people like, Stephen Pressfield, or the guys who run Stoic over on I can't remember what they're called, but there's this one thing I follow on Instagram. maybe it's daily stoic. I'm also thinking of like Jordan Peterson. Like there are some great stoics, great minds out there right now talking about these issues. What does it mean to be a man? And by man, in this case, I really do mean a male of the human species, right? But but that also applies to being a man, a human, the creatures that we are from the planet Earth. I mean, so female, male, you're a man, right? You're a human, right? There's a lot to be, but now, but I'm also willing to acknowledge that, men and women, we actually do think differently, right? And there's nothing wrong with that. It's, in my opinion, it's complementary. So now I'm the one who's taking us down the rabbit hole. But to Jeremy's point, I mean, if you're going to be a stoic about this, and if you're going to look at this from a very civilized and adult and rational perspective, I mean, Jeremy is 100% on target right now. So, in my opinion.
And to kind of, I guess, wrap up my point, the point being is we've created a culture to where we've lost the ability to provide value to stuff. And our value comes, I believe, within. It's not enough to just be a nice person. You have to
sorry, time out. I'm sorry. You were single. You were the full screen, and I had to bring it back to me, dude. I don't know if this is where you're going, and I'm sorry for interrupting you. I would actually make the argument, and we're totally off script here, boys and girls. This is not what we plan to talk about. But Jeremy, I would make the argument that there is a generation. There are a lot of people who have been misled or who haven't been taught how to see the path or find the North Star. And they're lost in the woods right now. There's a lot of people who don't even know what the hell you're even talking about at this moment. You see what I'm saying?
Yep. Yeah. No. And that, and as a result, they have no value for themselves.
Yeah.
And this is, and I'm not going to, nosedive into this because again, this is going to be another entire podcast, but we can see the devaluation of us as individuals and as society as a whole when we went through, very rampantly the phases of like hookup culture and the dissolution of marriage and the fatherless homes and all of these different things. Like there's and not only that though, but I mean, you look at just you look at not only in the United States, but you look at so many different things to where like just needless and wanton death. And, people are told by their municipalities or their government or their state, like, oh, it's not for you to do anything about this. We'll do it. Nothing gets done. And so as a result, you have this meat grinder of sorts that not only brings forth this devaluation, which is highly incentivized because it creates a dependency, but you also have this desensitizing to these atrocities and these terrible things, and then you're left with no way to have a method of preventing these things because it's not incentivized. And it's not incentivized because again, there's a lot of nuance to it, but it detracts from their ability to tell you what to do. So, and my whole point though is like we have to take it upon ourselves to add value to ourselves. When we can add value to ourselves, which can be by way of learning a skill, by I'm a firm believer in surrounding yourself with the people that are going to bring you in the direction you wish to go. If you hang out with burnouts and drug addicts and absolute, just morally bankrupt people, then guess what? You're going to be stuck in the rut of that type of thing, and you're probably going to live a miserable life. But if you surround yourself with people that are going to challenge you, that will challenge what you're doing, challenge who you are as a person, and build you up by providing constructive criticism, they're going to add value, and you're going to add value to yourself by doing that. And
well, just a quick interjection, though, just to throw this out there. I don't think there's anyone who would argue with what you just said. I mean, like, obviously, the only way you can get better at something is being around people who are as good or better at it than you are.
100%.
Right? Yeah. Whether it's handguns, whether it's ground fighting, no matter whether it's cooking, whatever it is.
Yep.
You only improve by being around people who are better at it than you. But the only reason I interrupt you is like, but I also think though, and not, again, we're way off script here, but I also think though that there's something to be said about, you know, being around people who are way worse than you too. I mean, both morally, like, because if you're open-minded and if you're on the path, and if you're on the path of trying to make yourself the best person you can, and this goes into stoicism. Again, boys and girls, this was not scripted. I'm going to do it right here. We had to script it out. What Jeremy's doing right now, this is not what we had scripted, but it's a great, this is, you know, maybe this is what the podcast will be like. Oh, we're going to talk about this, and then we're talking about spaghetti. I don't fucking know, but that's a great point, Jerry. But my only final thing is, I personally have learned a lot in life by unfortunately, and by when I say unfortunately, I don't mean it like it was bad for me. I just mean unfortunate because there were people in a worse situation than I was, but I was able to learn from that person. And I was able to,
100%.
So I'm not saying that you're poo-pooing that. You see what I'm kind of getting at? I'm just throwing out there like, don't just sit in your ivory tower is what I'm trying to say.
And I would say that falls in line with adversity, and adversity,
good point.
You know, the adversity gives way to growth, right? And how we deal with that adversity is going to determine the type of growth. But there again, you know, not to go down the rabbit hole, because this needs to be a singular podcast in and of itself. But essentially, I think people at this juncture, if you haven't figured out what our why is, it essentially, how I see it is, we are doing this to help cultivate not a culture, but at least a conversation that's going to spur you into action to, one, be a better person, two, help build a community of people around you and create a conversation within that community, and three, take that conversation and turn it into something tangible through action, through activism, whatever it is, but do something to change things. Otherwise, it's purposeless to sit there and complain about stuff. And I think that's, you know, kind of surmising what I was trying to say.
No, so how about this? So we're at an hour right now. Let's just wrap it up. I've got one response to that, and let's go into the topic that we wanted to discuss. But I think you just said it so well, so very nicely at the end. You did put a bow on it. And the only thing I could add to that, or maybe it's not even adding to it, maybe I'm emphasizing, is like, hey, boys and girls, you've got to get outside of your comfort zone. You know, like, you've got to get out there and challenge yourself. You have to look at things in the world. You have to ask hard questions. And then I think, and maybe Jeremy didn't quite say it this way, but this is how I interpret it. It's like, and take a step back and ask yourself, well, why is that person doing this and not that? Why can't I have a conversation on Facebook about issue 1, 2, or 3, or YouTube? You know what I'm saying? So again, that kind of goes into the why of it. But like, Jeremy, you did it a little bit differently, but I fucking loved it. I mean, it's like, this is why each and every one of us needs to get off of our asses. Quit sitting on your hands. You have to be active. I don't care if you're a Christian, Muslim, Jew. I don't care what your religious preference is. But if you're religious, and even if you're not religious, how can you look at your life, your existence as a human being, and then say to yourself, I'm meant to sleep 12 hours a day. I'm meant to sit on the couch and play video games, or that is not what we are meant to do. Right. So here, kind of jumping into, this should be another podcast, is like, what are we meant to do? Well, I'll tell you this, though, I don't know what we're meant to do, but I just know this, like, to quote Hobbes, and I'm going to probably quote Hobbes, but life is cold, nasty, brutish, and short. We have a limited period of time on this planet. And if you're going to waste it or spend it, so you might say, well, I'm not wasting it. I'm doing this and I'm making money. Okay, great. Maybe that's your argument. I've become a YouTuber, or I'm a gamer and I make a couple million. Look what that PewDiePie guy, he's worth millions of dollars. Okay, great. But my only question, from what Jeremy and I are talking about, like from a stoic or a humanistic perspective, is that what that guy is supposed to do? Is that like, why were people watching this guy play video games? Like, You know what I'm saying? Like, okay,
Yep.
he's not at fault here necessarily. Maybe we are. It's the same thing from a political perspective.
Yep.
If we keep voting these knuckleheads in power, well, who's to blame?
Yeah.
Well, we are.
Right.
We keep voting these idiots in charge. And again, there's so many Democrats and Republicans on both sides of the aisle.
Mm-hmm.
And this will be, I guarantee you, boys and girls, this will be, matter of fact, Jeremy, before we get into the heart of it, let's segue right here. When we're talking about the podcast,
yep,
we are going to have sponsors. Now, these sponsors, I don't know what this is going to look like. We're figuring this out, but the sponsors are probably going to be me reaching out to people in similar spaces, or Jeremy, you know, doing the same thing in his world because he's a gunsmith, right? So, but we're going to reach out to some people, and sometimes maybe it's, you know, a local restaurant in Duluth, Minnesota. Well, that does you no good if you're from, you know, Louisville, Kentucky. I get that, but we'll do something. We'll find out some ways. We'll have sponsors, but not sponsors that are paying for this programming, because Jeremy and I are paying for this programming,
right?
You know? Yeah. No, it's just a nice way to, I think, maybe expose everyone else to other great people out there, other great companies who are doing great things that Jeremy and I both agree. Like, you know, hey, that's a great company, or they make really good food, and or the owner's an awesome person, or hey, I really like this guy's, you know, Kydex sheath, you know, whether it's for a handgun or a knife, or you know, or whatever the case is. So we're gonna do that stuff, but when we do it, because I'm a smart ass, and I just, Jeremy and I spent like 30 minutes. Yeah, he's laughing right now. So we spent like 30 minutes before the podcast, before we hit play or record, excuse me, talking about this. We're gonna give the stuff away. And matter of fact, Jeremy, I'm gonna shut up. Why don't you? Because it was your idea, and it's a masterful idea. My only comment is we'll add a little something to each one.
Yep.
We already talked about this. Why don't you tell everybody? So here we go, boys and girls. Jeremy's going to give you the rules or the parameter, but we are going to have sponsors. We are going to give things away, right? I'm going to reach out to other people who are with, whether it's a 20% discount code or a free piece of gear. But once Jeremy's done talking, I'll tell you what, Centerline Systems, we're going to give something away to somebody from this video today.
Right.
So Jeremy, go ahead. I'm putting
so basically, it's kind of a cool deal. So the way that we've kind of figured it out is we are going to propose basically some type of a knowledge-based question, and with the hopes of incentivizing people to, you know, kind of dig into the meat of kind of the topics that we talk about, and to some degree or another. And in conjunction with that, the way that we're going to kind of do that, and to kind of get a little bit more out of that, is not only are we going to have kind of like the requirement to supplement, you know, whatever the answer is going to be, but we want you guys to also add something to the conversation to a certain degree, whether it's by way of, you know, having a quirky joke, because humor is freaking awesome, or it's by way of having a story that complements kind of what the subject matter is. And so we're going to take something like that, and we're going to package it up and present it to you guys. And then the way that we're going to evaluate that is by not only finding the correct answer, because in the end of the day, Google's an amazing thing, and you'll probably be able to find that whole thing there, but it's not enough. We want you to not only do this by way of educating yourselves, but also by getting you engaged as viewers. And once that's done, we will go through after the podcast is aired, and we will be able to determine which person was able to provide not only the answer, but also probably the best reply that either gave Mark a laugh to where he's rolling endlessly, or you know, or was very supplemental and like a cool little story or something like that.
Or honestly, as we talked about, or just a good addition to the story that maybe
100%.
we didn't know about, right? You know, like, So in other words, boys and girls, Jeremy and I will figure out who the winner is, because we all know everybody can cheat and go and Google it. But Jeremy's right. It is an awesome thing.
Everybody wins, I would say, to a certain degree, because there's the potential to learn. And then there's always going to be the potential to win an awesome piece of kit. And I consider me somewhat biased, but I've used Mark's stuff before, and if you're looking for high quality stuff, this is the one thing that I will say. If you could get a free piece of gear, this is the gear that I would say is worth its weight in gold.
Woo.
So,
Hey, no, that's it right there. I mean, because I'm looking at the time, we're almost at a minute 10. Dude, when my clock display on my computer makes me, I read it wrong every fucking time. I apologize. It's an hour and 10 minutes, not a minute 10 seconds. But
close enough.
Yeah, but just wrapping up the prize thing, boys and girls. Jeremy and I, because I didn't know how to do this. I was like, oh, I know we do this. People are just going to cheat and they're just going to use their phones. And, and this goes back, and I'm bringing this up because it goes back into the why I'm doing this podcast. Because I just learned something from Jeremy tonight. I was so hung up on my personal experiences for my business with people emailing me, give me free pieces of gear. And no one ever says like, dude, that's money out of my pocket. How is this a return of my investment? What are you going to do for me? Are you going to do 4 posts? Are you going to do a video? No one ever says that. They just want a free piece of gear. So I was hung up on and I want to give free gear away in this podcast, this Mission Critical podcast. But I was like, I don't know how to do it because, people are just going to cheat. And then it was Jeremy Redbeard came up with the great idea. Like, well, okay, that's not necessarily a bad idea. Honestly, whether you like it or not, if you don't want to go and do the research, well, then you're not going to win the prize. Go and do the research. And we're going to get into the first giveaway right now in a second, but go do the research. That I'm not going to give you the answers. Matter of fact, see the previous video. We actually already did this in a video. Well, we didn't do this, but we did this test. We were talking about the First Amendment, and I threw myself under the bus. I'm like, okay, Jeremy, why don't you talk about that?
So basically, we kind of ran a litmus test just to kind of test the waters, if you will. And this was based on a discussion in one of our previous podcasts before this one, to where, I posed the question, like what are the 5 rights within the First Amendment, and how many people actually understand that? And to be fair, Mark did actually pretty good.
I got all 5. That's not pretty good. That's 100%, dude.
Yeah.
I just stumbled on the 5th. I stumbled on the 5th one, but I got them all right.
We circled back around, as the White House spokesperson always likes to say. We'll circle back around to this.
Oh, hang on. I thought you were Redbeard, not Jean Pierre or whatever her name is.
Hey, I'd probably have a far better job at this point if I.
Well, you're way more articulate. That's for sure.
Maybe they need me, but. In the end of the day,
I do have to throw this one little joke. You're not as sexy as she is, but you are more articulate. So continue, sir.
Well, I yield to that notion, but, but yeah, so we kind of ran a litmus test, and I was like, I think it would be a really awesome idea to pose something like this, because, and it's not stuff that's, it's stuff. Let me back up. It's stuff that should be obvious, but is not obvious in today's world because it's not presented in today's world as often as it should be. So, it's things that are either relevant to the conversation or relevant to our founding or stuff like that. So it's going to be good stuff. You guys are going to get something out of it. Did you want me to pose the question for this?
Yeah, just roll. You're on a roll. Just go with it.
All right. So the question that
hang on. Before you do this, so what am I going to give away, Jeremy? So the winner of this, if you're in, so this is a minute and 30. I just did it again. A minute. It's an hour and 13 minutes. I hate this little timer on my computer. It's an hour and 13 minutes into the video. We're about to give away a free piece of gear. Now, Jeremy, what do you think? Should I give a specific piece of gear or leave it up to the winner? It's going to be a free piece of gear from the things that we make at Centerline Systems. I'm going to let Jeremy decide if it's a specific item or if it's just whoever wins it can work out whatever they want with me. You decide, Jeremy. You're in charge.
Oh, boy. All this power, I feel like a government.
And by the way, so once you think about that, then segue into the actual question for the contest.
Yeah. So one thing that I would, on it personally, that I would love for people, for somebody who gets this right and comes out on top. I cannot recommend highly enough, in my opinion, for my use, is I love Mark's canteen carrier. It's the Mother canteen carrier, and you have a version 2 out or coming out, right?
Yeah,
Mark?
Deuce.
Modus. All right. So so that canteen carrier is hands down one of the coolest systems that I have used to date out of all my gear. And because it's versatile, it's flexible in its applications. Like it's just it in the words of many people, it kind of just works, and it works seamlessly whether you have like a regular belt, a duty belt, or you have some type of fighting belt. It works really, really well. It can go on to backpacks and really assimilate into a lot of different systems. It's a backpacker's buddy, and it's a warfighter's best friend. So with that being said, I think that's going to be the thing that I would like to put forth for people. And
I'm kind of surprised. I actually thought you were going to say the concealment belt or one of the belts.
the,
You're
the,
going to go with the Mother. You're going to go, or
I,
we call it the Modus right now. Sorry
Yep.
for yelling from the background, but
yeah.
but
Yeah, no, and it was
Okay.
hard. It was a hard decision because I love the freaking belt.
Okay.
But it's one of those things.
Modus it is. Modus
Yeah.
it is. Yep. Hey,
So
all right. Seriously, survival and
Yep.
an over shoulder.
Yep.
If you think it's just a canteen carrier, then you should put your canteen in the sock. It's way more.
You're
Okay.
just limiting your creativity.
Yeah. So here, I'm going to bring it back to both of us. So there it is. So it shall be written.
Yep.
So it shall be, or so it shall be, whatever. So it shall be
Yep.
written. So it shall be said. Jeremy has spoken. Well, that's a good song. I forgot. That was a weird little. I just like, oh, am I doing a little? That's not Soundgarden. What the hell is the name of that band? It's another 90s band. Jeremy spoke in class today. Anyway,
Yep.
I'm digressing here on the music side.
But
it'll come to me. I keep saying Soundgarden. It's not Soundgarden, but
Pearl Jam, was it?
What? Who's it?
Not Pearl Jam, was it?
It is Pearl Jam. Oh, dude,
okay.
Dude, great pull, Jeremy. I was hung up on Soundgarden for some reason, but
that's
Pearl
my
Jam.
one per week.
Eddie Vedder. There it is. Eddie Vedder.
Yeah.
Yep, Eddie Vedder. All right, so Jeremy has spoken. It's going to be a Modus, a canteen carrier. So whoever answers. So
Awesome.
again, it's not just answering this question.
Yep.
Because everybody's going to cheat on this, and we're okay with that. That was my dilemma. I was like, people are just going to cheat, but we're okay. Go do. You either know it, and you'll just try to pull it and do it, or you'll go and do your research. So, and maybe of the 10 people who watch this video,
Yep.
Maybe all 10 of you go and do the research. Well, okay, so but it isn't just figuring out the answer, which is that is our intent. I'm willing to give you. Seriously, that's money out of my pocket. I'm going to give somebody to go and do some research. And I'm here to tell you, you're going to find out when you do this research, and this is how we're going to design these questions. I think this is the only thing Jeremy left out is that we're going to ask questions that by design will get you to go do some research because we know you're going to cheat. I now acknowledge that, and I'm okay with it because I'm okay with it because you're going to find out more than you're going to be like, holy shit, what about this and what about that? And this is where I'm going to turn it over to Jeremy for the question because we already talked about this and Jeremy already threw a bunch of things at me and I was trying to answer them and it was already like all these great little give and takes. But so it's not just answering the question because you're going to have a great time doing the research. But then I think you already said this. You're going to either have to give a personal story or add a little bit of flavor to it. Like, oh, and by the way, this guy who did this also led this company of, Rangers at the battle of, cow pens or whatever it's going to be. Add a little flavor to it or add a good joke that makes me laugh.
Yeah.
Right? Now I'm going to bring it back to Jeremy. He's going to give you today's question for a free piece of gear. All right, here we go.
So today's question, this one to me is, I think, one of the more important ones in our history. But when was the actual day in which the Declaration of Independence was signed and codified? When was the actual day the Declaration of Independence was signed and codified?
There you have it, boys and girls. That's the question. Free piece of gear. Jeremy has spoken. It's going to be a Modus, the canteen carrier that we make.
Yep.
Whoever answers that question, right? Go do the research.
Yep.
What was the and you're going to be, I'm here to tell you, there's a bunch of people right now. If you're watching this video, the 5 of you, you're going to be like, oh, it's this day. Maybe I'm giving a clue. You would be surprised. Go do the research. Go on Google or whatever your search engine is.
It may surprise you.
Yeah, you're going to be surprised. Go figure this out. And now, Jeremy and I both knew this answer before. And what I love about this is because my brain was like, well, what about this other thing? And you're going to find that out too. And that's what's awesome about all this. So go figure it out, answer the question, but then add to it in some way that either it's for everybody's benefit and education or it's just humorous, something like that. And then, and end of the day, Jeremy and I are going to decide who wins, there's no well, you were the first person or whatever. No, we'll figure out who wins, but somebody's going to get a free canteen carrier.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's what I think is great about it is, somebody's not only going to add a lot of flavor to it. I think everybody's going to add a lot of flavor to it because there's always that anticipation to where each person's going to have a story. And the reality of it is too, is it may be extremely close with everybody. There might be some bangers for jokes, or you could have somebody that just has you could have people that just blow you out of the water with stuff you didn't even know. Yeah. And it's like, oh, all right. So this is hard to call, and so I want to put that out there too, is we really want everybody to put their best foot forward on this. So you make it as difficult for us as it is for you, Ooh,
so I like how you just said that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Make the decision difficult for us as well. I like that. Yeah. No, I like that. Yeah.
And I guarantee you, whoever comes out on top for this, you're not going to be, you're going to be blown away. Like I said, I'm biased to Mark's stuff only because I've used it. I've tried it. I've tested it. And Mark knows I've gone out camping a lot in terms of bushcraft. I've taken it all over. It's been
he camps out in his basement, boys and girls. Don't be
yeah, right.
The man doesn't do anything outside, whether it's snowing or raining. He doesn't do any of that shit.
Well, see, you're giving my secret away though. You can't see the sandbags here, but it's actually fortified. And
you have a weather machine, so you can have some wind, and some sand and some snow, I suppose. I never knew that, but I can see you having that stuff. Yeah.
But yeah, no, guys, it's guys and gals. It is going to be a banger of reward, and it'll be fun. So,
well, I mean, honestly, jumping into some of the future podcasts, depending on what you order, the materials, the camouflage patterns, that kind of stuff. But we're looking at $135, and I'm here to tell you, boys and girls. So I guess I'm giving a little bit of my personal, and this will be another future podcast. The one thing that really bothers me the most, Jeremy, is when people say, "Oh, but it's so expensive." My only response to that is let's just pretend you make $100 a day. Go to work tomorrow and tell your boss you only want to make $25. There's no American who's going to be like, oh, that of course I'll do. So why do you want me to do that? You're comparing me to cheap ass gear made from China. But it's so expensive. I'm like, is it really? If I was on Shark Tank and I had to open up my books and you knew how much it cost me to make every one of those products, and then there's so much more to the cost of goods, overhead, insurance, all these things. And I might be making $5 on it, but you want me to give it to you for $30. Dude, we're going to have conversations about this in the future podcast, because this is another reason why men of the West have become weak, because
all I'm going to say,
I'm going to blame it on Nixon. Everybody wants to blame Nixon for Watergate. Fuck Watergate. I mean, there's shit going on right now in the world that it makes Watergate look like, two kids hooking up at a goddamn high school dance.
All I'm going to say is the fact that we're opting to give this away, and the fact that it is an investment on Mark's behalf. I firmly believe that when whoever wins this piece of gear, when you get it into your hands and you use it and you apply it to whatever it is you're trying to do, one, not only are you not getting it, not only are you getting it for only the cost of properly answering, but also having something awesome to go along with it. You're getting a good piece of gear that you can get hands on with. And I kind of hate to say it this way, but there's really no better way to advertise your product than to get it into somebody's hands with an unbiased review and be like, no, yeah, this is a banger of a product. Like, and it cost me this and this to get it. And it's, you know, to me, I think everybody's going to be satisfied with it. And I think hopefully, you know, with that product as well, I would be willing to bet, I will be willing to bet, Mark, they will come back and pay the cost because they'll be satisfied with the quality of the gear.
Well, as you know, I like to say, like, the moment you have a piece of my gear in your hands, you know, everybody says, you know, a picture is worth 1,000 words or whatever. No. It's like, no,
I will be right back.
The only way you're destroying it is if you actually destroy it, or if you use it to fight off a grizzly bear. I mean, like, dude, made in America, handcrafted, American, blah, 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 blah. But on that point right there, that is exactly also, Jeremy, just boys and girls, don't forget the fact that we're human beings and we have to use the restroom and stuff like that too. So that's why you'll see us kind of moving in these different screen formats. But I'll just throw this out there while Jeremy has stepped away. The other sponsors, well, we'll see. I don't know. I don't want to put the cart before the horse, but I'm going to reach out to a bunch of other, you know, similar in the fact that they're handcrafted, you know, small business. Like, I follow some people on Instagram, and if you're on Instagram and if you see this video, like, I might be reaching out to you because there's people I follow. Like, dude, I really like the way this guy makes leather sheaths, or I like how this gal does this, or whatever it is. So we're going to try to find those type of individuals. I mean, that's my intent anyway. Those type of individuals, you know, other small business owners, other creators, you know, for example, not throwing him under the bus. Matter of fact, no, I'm just going to stop. I almost said the name of somebody, but that's unfair. I need to reach out to people, you know, offline and privately before I do this. But there's a lot of great companies out there, and by companies I mean small businesses. You know, I'm not here. I'll say this: I'm never going to reach out to Nike or you know, any of those, you know, brands, because those aren't small business owners. And that is, in my opinion, the stuff that has ruined our nation, right? It's like, oh, well, so honestly, for me, and we'll do this for another podcast. I'm bringing Jeremy back up right now because I really do want to have this as a podcast. I want to sit and talk about the history of how Richard Nixon was a horrible president, but not because of Watergate, but because of the whole China First policy and what that has done for our nation and for our world. And we're on the verge of a world war right now with a hostile actor who you're never going to see. You're always going to have resistance within the Western world because too many Western companies are doing business with a nation state, not the people. I'm not dogging the people of China. Well, unless you support the, you know, CCP. But we're doing business with a government, a communist government that doesn't care about your human rights. So all the shit that's being talked about in America today, if you really believe in what you're saying, go over and do that in China. If you think our society sucks, go do that in China right now. So Jeremy, hang on. Let me just see if people can hear this. Can you hear that? That's me drumming my fingers, waiting for you to actually go do it, and then to come back and say, "Fuck, Mark was right." Yeah. All right. Hey, here's the deal, brother, Red Man. So it's an hour and a half almost right now, and we didn't get into our topic. But I actually like where this has gone so far, and I'm almost willing to let it end right there because I think we've said what we need to say for this podcast. And maybe we do this again on Thursday and we actually do the topic, which is securing. So to let everybody know, we want to talk about securing classified information.
Yep.
Obviously, there's been something, well, it's being buried in the news right there, but what was it, a week ago? An airman, private first class. I don't know if that's how it works in the Air Force. Anybody in the Air Force, let me know. He's an E3. I don't know if that's an airman. It's probably an airman first class.
So it's got to be close from what I remember.
Something like that, right?
Structure and stuff.
But a very junior ranking individual in the Air Force leaked a bunch of documentation, blah, 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 blah. But we wanted to talk about that because it ties into a previous podcast I did over on Centerline Systems about how to secure classified information. I had a friend of mine who's used to be in the CIA. We worked with each other. He's out. He's a civilian now. And then a friend of mine who used to be in the FBI, who he and I first met each other doing work with each other downrange, and he's out of the FBI now. And we talked about this issue. So Jeremy, I think we could maybe do that on Thursday because I don't want to take this first one over where we are right now. I think we should wrap it up.
Yeah, I think keeping it confined at this mark is really good. So
then how about this for everybody who's watching this? Because I'm going to publish this video tonight, but we'll shoot another one on Thursday.
Yep.
And then, but that will be maybe it won't be as a long-winded introduction. Another small introduction, and then we'll spend about an hour talking about how to secure classified information as it pertains to this most recent event and this airman who leaked this quote unquote leaked this information. What do you think, Jeremy?
Yeah, sounds good to me. I think having a full breadth of a podcast episode specifically for that is going to be pretty optimal instead of trying to condense it into this. So,
all right, so boys and girls, if you're watching this, and if you continue watching, and tell your friends because you're here for the ride. We will actually have these conversations in the video. Like, okay, what do we want to do the next time? Some of these we might do live, and maybe you'll chime in and like. It's not as easy as it sounds. Like a live video stream. Jeremy and I are trying to have a conversation. We've got a quote unquote script. I'm trying to look at the camera. My computer's down here. So if you've noticed, I'm looking down because that's where Jeremy's face is. When I'm looking right here, I'm looking at the camera. I'm looking at you. But when I want to look at Jeremy, I have to look down. It's the same place I'd have to be if I'm answering somebody's, chat, in the online and stuff like that. But we'll see what happens. I mean, again, what does this look like going forward? To be determined. But I think everybody gets the sense of it. We want to have fun. There's a million fucking things to talk about. And we want you guys to come along with for the ride. So I'm going to bring some of my friends on board as guest speakers. Jeremy will do the same thing. And then, but more importantly, as you keep watching us, tell your friends, because we want to have you on board. As we want to want
to engage you guys.
Yeah, damn right. Because otherwise, why are we doing this? Jeremy and I could be sitting here just talking on the phone. I could be having a glass of wine and smoking a cigar. I can't smoke while I'm talking to you guys, right? So if it was just as simple as that, if that was the motivation, then we wouldn't be here. Obviously, there's a greater motivation. We are all humans. We are all individuals on this planet. And unfortunately, and you can get mad at me all you want, but you don't, unless you live in America, you probably don't quite really culturally, you don't quite understand what Jeremy and I are talking about, because not by our merits, not by something that we've done, but by birth. Jeremy and I, in this time and day and age, this time in history, we are citizens of the greatest country in the world. Our country is all fucked up, and we'll sit and talk. But this is
that'll come. That'll come.
Oh yeah. We're not above reproach, but this is, in the history of humanity, the only country that has a declaration, a constitution like we do. Matter of fact, Jeremy, how about this? Let's end this. So we're at an hour and 33. Hey, I did a better job. I didn't say a minute, whatever. It's an hour.
You're getting better. See, folks,
I'm learning how to read that fucking clock a little bit better. But why don't you take a few seconds and let everybody know, what does it mean to be? Why are we a democracy, Jeremy? And boys and girls, Jeremy could talk on this subject for hours. And if he goes more than 10 minutes, I'm going to cut him off. But we're going to give you a little taste here. If you're an American, or if you're anyone, if you're anybody outside of anyone in this, again, this little blue marble earth, if you think America's a democracy, Jeremy's about to maybe put a little smack on you here. All right. And because, by the way, democracies are fucking bad. And you know, and don't let anyone fool you. Oh, no, we're not a democracy, motherfuckers. We are a constitutional republic. And there is a difference, and that fucking difference matters more than you actually, or you may or may not know. All right, Jeremy, take us out on the difference between a democracy and a constitutional republic. By the way, boys and girls, this wasn't nowhere on that board. Does it say Jeremy talks about democracy versus constitutional republic? So that's what you're going to get from these podcasts. Jeremy, take us away.
With a semi-basic analogy. So you have two scenarios which play out. You have little Timmy riding his bike in the neighborhood, and all of a sudden you get like a crowd of 5 people. Say those 5 people constitute the neighborhood. With a democracy, what you get is, even though little Timmy knows that that's his property and knows that he has every right to ride his bike in that neighborhood, so on and so forth, what you get with democracy is it always devolves to mob rule voting to usurp the rights of other people. So little Timmy in a democracy, no matter what his rights are, no matter what his liberties are, could be outvoted by other people, and it's perfectly okay to take that bike from little Timmy because the democracy wants the bike from little Timmy. And if it sounds dystopian, it's because it always ends up dystopian.
Because it is.
And so in a republic, though, if little Timmy's pedaling away and he's going down the sidewalk and he those same people they come up and they're like, hey, we want your bike and we're going to vote to take your bike away, and little Timmy's like, no, you're not. Guess what little Timmy gets to do? He gets to exercise his rights regardless of what they say, because those rights are evaluated and codified as being natural. He has every right to his property, and he has every right to defend his property, whether it's the apparatus of the larger government or the body of the people in general that decide they want to take it. The biggest primary difference is, in a republic, the individual will always be able to exercise and retain their rights and liberty. In a democracy, your rights and liberty are subject to the mob rule and the demands of the greater body of the people, being the majority. The majority does not have the right to deprive the individual of their rights and their liberties, no matter how tragic or insensible the situation might be. That's just the way it is. Our founding fathers, matter of fact, George Washington, found democracy to be absolutely abhorrent. He himself had said that democracies usually dwindle down into nothing more than absolute despotism, because after a while, that mob that continues to consume and consume and consume, it's going to get to a point to where it starts to consume itself and it eventually falls apart, right? So what are you left with in this carcass of democracy? It's nothing more than a despotic land of would-be rulers and would-be kings that get to wreak havoc all over.
People are also called, by the way, Jeremy, just to give you a little bit of the English language, a synonym, those people are called tyrants. That's the other word for that.
100%. Right? Yeah. And that's what they were labeled as, is, so this idea, one of our biggest departures that we've had, I would say, with even within the last 100 years, I would go so far as to say back to about 100 years, is the fact that we started utilizing language that was the antithesis of what we are as a nation. It is the antithesis to who we are as a people, right?
Totally not scripted, boys and girls. That's why he's fucking nailing it.
So here's the thing. And I say 100 years ago because when you look at right about World War I, what was the verbiage that was being used? We need to defend democracies around the world from these attackers. It's always this choice of language. And what you found is, in order to shift the tide from us evaluating who we are as a nation, as a constitutional republic, what they've done is they've done death by repetition. If you say it enough times, it becomes truth, even though it never really becomes truth, right? You can paint a white wall pink or black or brown or whatever, but underneath all of those colors, it's still a white wall. So it doesn't matter how many times you repeat it, it just becomes a convenient lie. And it's convenient for whom? Not convenient for us. It's convenient for those people that would seek to usurp or subjugate a group of people. And we see this playbook that is synonymous with any other type of totalitarian or authoritarian regimes, whether it's fascism, whether it's communism. It all starts the same way. It's just different means to an end. Some much more abhorrent than others, but they eventually devolve into absolute chaos. And so,
hey, stop. I got to stop you, dude. This is another podcast by itself. And more importantly, this also is another contest question right here. Is have somebody define the differences and break down or provide the worst historical examples of quote unquote democracy, or provide the best recent example of how everybody keeps talking about democracy here in America. We're not a democracy. We never were. We've never been a democracy. So I don't want to. So okay, you wrap it up because I don't want to. I can sidebars right now. So
all I'm going to say is liberty and rights cannot exist where one would seek to have democracy. They are antithetical to each other.
That's right.
They are like a positive and a negative magnet. They don't work no matter how much you try and smash them together. And at that juncture, when we get to that point, which I believe we have been at that point for a while, you must make a decision whether you value your liberty, your independence, and your freedom and your rights more than the whims of the mob. And if you choose, and all I'm going to say is if you choose to go with the whims of the mob, then you're going to reap what you sow. If you choose to go to the side of rights and liberty, you will still reap what you sow with consequences, but it is much better to have control over your own life than it is to have your own life controlled by the many. So
die on your feet or live on your knees. I mean, period. I mean, Jeremy, that's the greatest way to take us out right there, what you just said. All right. So again, boys and girls, totally unscripted, but that's what you're going to get in the Mission Critical podcast going forward. Jeremy, I'm about to do an outro. Do you have any? No, I'll come back to you, but do you have anything that you want to add to that statement at the end before I take us out? Because let's just take us out. We're at a minute. I just said a minute. We're at an hour and 40 minutes right now. So why don't I just take us out? Right there.
Take
you
us
want
out.
to add to what you just said about the democracy versus republic?
To be fair, I mean, there's not much more that can be said that wouldn't otherwise be repackaged and said a different way. So, and I'm not the government, so I'm not going to just rewrite the same rule 10 times.
Yeah, slightly different language.
If something's good enough, it'll stand on its own principle.
So for everybody who's watching, and so again, it's Tuesday, 25th of April here tonight. We're just wrapping up this podcast. It's 19:30 Central Daylight Time. Jeremy, if you're watching this, rewind that. Listen to what Jeremy just said. Listen to that a million fucking times. Do your research. That comment right there, that topic, that's going to come back for future giveaways. Matter of fact, so Jeremy and I are working out that whole giveaway thing. We were having fun earlier, but we're ending on a serious note. If you think we're a democracy, boy, I don't know if you're my enemy or if you're just stupid. I hate to say it this way, but there's no more bullshitting around. There's no more pussyfooting around. That's the word I was looking for, or the phrase. If you think America's a democracy, I'm kind of looking at you like you're either ignorant, intentionally stupid, or you are an evil person intentionally trying to persuade other people to believe that 2 + 2 = potato. Yeah, something's not right. We are a constitutional republic. There's a huge effing difference. Jeremy did a way better job than I'll ever be able to do of laying that out. And we're going to have more of that type of conversation as we go forward. That's part that for me, that's part of the why of the, why are we doing this podcast? Why am I doing this? Well, I might lose my business. I might have to go and, start digging ditches. I don't know. There's nothing wrong with digging ditches. That's a good labor. But what Jeremy just said, at the end of the day, I'm not giving that up. No, I'm not in a democracy. I live in a constitutional republic. Again, that's what makes, whether you like us or hate us, and we're not perfect by any stretch of the imagination. And we'll save that for another podcast too. Yeah. We have to dig ourselves out of this hole. We have to, there's so many things that as Americans, we need to start doing better, right? But in the right here and right now, what Jeremy just said, think about that. Rewind it, listen to it again, do some of your own research. Yeah. That is, in my opinion, the heart of Mission Critical podcast right there. Yeah. Jeremy, what do you think?
Yeah.
Did I just get a little too emotional there?
And I, the way that I would add to that, Mark, is back when we first started this journey to get here, we had the whole declaration of intent. Like that was foundational to getting here. Right. And what I want to add to that is this is very much predicated on that as a foundation, because that is why we are here, because we resolved to ourselves, we committed to ourselves, and I would say to each other, Mark, to do better.
And right now to everybody else who ever watches
and to everybody else, like there is a commitment that we must have as men, as women, as humankind, to better ourselves and to be better prepared. And Mark knows that there's a couple different things that I have committed to doing. One of those is training. I have committed to have this year be filled with training. And I just over the weekend, I went out and did training, with night vision and white light, and shot in situations that is uncomfortable to most people because you don't know how to deal with it. And then I was up, I got in late, and I'm like, God, I'm super tired. And I had a day of recovery. And then just last night, I didn't get back in till after 12. But it's like, what portion of your life are you willing to sacrifice to make yourself better and to train and to do the things you have to do, not only for your sake, but for your family's sake, for your friends' sake, for the people you love and care about, to create a life that is worth living. As men, we have to have resolutions. We've got to have resolve. The biggest commitment we can have as men is the one that we make for ourselves, because we can't commit to ourselves and into the betterment of ourselves. There's no amount of commitment that you put into anybody else that is going to last. So I'm just going to say, like, I have taken my commitment seriously. I've started committing to what I said I was going to do, and I intend to do it. I have training every single week now. I have committed, and I work with a fantastic group of guys from a ton of different backgrounds. And the biggest thing about that is there's military dudes, there's law enforcement dudes, there's dirty civs like me. And the very consensus of it is the fact that we all bring something to the table and we can learn from one another. And if that's not the page that you're on, I would highly recommend that you figure your shit out. You get on that page, you find people that are like that, and you have to go outside your door. It can't just be online all the time. You have to go outside, talk to people, get to know people. And I promise you, you will find those people. And when you do, you better make a commitment to yourself to better yourself, because they're going to be some of the best people you can surround yourself with. So, Mark, I suspect that you're along the same lines, obviously, with your commitments and what you're endeavoring to do. And I think that putting that into action is important. It's why we're here. But beyond that, our own individual selfish endeavors are what brings us to this point. So that's what I have to say about that. Beyond that, I have nothing else. And that's all I got to say.
My good man, that is how we're taking this podcast out, this first episode. There's nothing more to add to that. If you don't know what I'm talking about right now, just rewind the last 5 minutes and listen to Jeremy say it all over again. We'll have more. We will add more to this as we progress,
Mm-hmm.
as we go. We're growing. We're figuring this out. We've already said that, so I'm not going to belabor that, but we'll get better at this. But right now, this is going to conclude it. Jeremy just took us out on an incredibly positive note. If you're a man, if you believe in freedom, and by man, again, I just mean, I'm probably the last time I'm ever going to say this. I'm not saying a biological male, then I would have called you a male. If you're a human being, maybe I'll just say human being so everybody doesn't, get mad at me. But if you're a human being, and if you just heard what Jeremy said, and if that doesn't resonate in your bones, then this isn't probably the podcast for you. But if you like what that just happened, please, again, consider putting us on your bookshelf, so to speak. Again, we're all busy. I get it. I'm the same way. There's like 3 podcasts I listen to depending on the time of the day and the day of the week and how busy I am, right? We all have a limited amount of time in our lives. But if you can, and if you can find a way to tuck us into your bookshelf or share us with your friends, please do. Because again, this isn't, and it's no offense to anybody else. I'm not like Joe Rogan. But Jeremy and I aren't trying to be millionaires. We're just trying to be human beings and sharing our thoughts and our experiences with people and bringing other like-minded or even totally opposed to us people into a format where we can have a conversation and we can talk about this, because the reality is life is cold, nasty, brutish, and short. And we better all start working with each other and figuring this stuff out, or all of those things will be like magnified by 10. And but more importantly to that, because I was saying some things that sounded, well, as I was saying them, to me they sounded like rather selfish. And there's no greater thing as a man, a human, than to, in my opinion, than to be a part of something that's bigger and greater than you. And we all are part of that. If we all take a step back and realize that Instagram and Facebook and all this other bullshit, YouTube, and none of that matters. Jeremy, we're going to have to save this for the next podcast, but prior to us shooting, and this is, we're ending it here. This is my final comments. We'll come back to Jeremy and take us out. Jeremy and I talked about the things that he just did over the weekend and the training he went through. We talked to each other. But the greatest part about that, and Jeremy hasn't really, I mean, he's kind of alluded to, but he hasn't brought it out. It's like, not only was he going out and making himself a better person and doing and training and challenge, however you want to say it, I would say this, he was challenging himself. Dude, that could be at the range at night under nods during inclement weather. It could be in the kitchen learning how to make a fucking soup or whatever it is. It could be, I'm going to change my own oil this week. Whatever it is, that is the key thing, in my opinion. You got to get out. We all have to get out there, get out of our fucking comfort zones and start doing things that not only make us, challenge us, because challenge makes us better people. If you think it's sitting on your couch and playing video, okay, maybe but your argument better be is like, I'm the 20 in the whole world. I'm the 20th ranked, person on whatever, and I make $1 million a year. Okay, then you have an argument. And I guess maybe, by default, you could say, well, I have to get there and I have to put in the time. Well, okay, I suppose, but but you're going to be missing out on things. You're going to be missing out on what Jeremy just described in his story. And that's kind of my final point right there. Is like, and I think I'm going to bring it all the way full circle to the beginning of the video, and I'm going to shut up and bring it over to Jeremy. That's the why I'm doing this. I'm really looking forward to, honestly, selfishly, this experience, this journey will be an experience for me. This will be my own personal journey on how I can be a better person as well. Conversations with Jeremy, through sharing those conversations, in front of a video camera, which I'm not totally comfortable with. I used to be a spy. We don't like, this is anathema to me. I don't want to be on social media, all that kind of stuff, but whatever. But I want to be a better person, and I strive to be a better person every day. So that's my final comment right there, Jeremy. We're at an hour and 53. Why don't you take us out, sir? I mean, you take us out, and I'll be poised to end recording for everybody who's watching, I'm done talking. Watch, follow us, Rumble, YouTube, stay tuned, Instagram, Twitter, if we can
if we can figure that out.
Reaccess
little dumpster
I
fire.
don't know. Yeah, right. I don't know how we already got banned from Twitter. We haven't even done anything over there, but my final comment, Jeremy, is like this is what we're doing. And it's the righteous thing to do. And I'm not trying to say I'm a righteous person. I'm a sinner just like everybody else. I've got all kinds of I'm fallible. There's so many things I need to improve on as a human being. But the one thing that I do think maybe egotistically is that I'm smart enough to know I don't know everything. So every day is a journey for me. So, all right, that's what this podcast is for me. That's why I'm doing it.
And
all right, Jeremy, take us out, sir.
And so to kind of go based off of, that and kind of off of my previous comments, just briefly here. I just want to put it out there that the guys that I had the privilege, and I really do say the privilege of being able to train with the past couple of days. If people don't feel that they can find their community, I'm here to tell you, dude, like all you have to do is step outside that door, have a real conversation with real people, meet people with doesn't even have to be the same, interests, and you make a connection, dude. Like before Saturday, outside of like two guys, I'd never met the rest of these guys in my entire life. And after Saturday, and then furthermore, like the guys who showed up to put in work, to put in the reps, to do like some CQB work or close quarters work with rifles and stuff like that, like and learning how to do that, dude. And Mark can probably attest to this. When you work that closely with other dudes, even if you've never met those guys before, and you start getting that flow, and you can, each of you have the same weight of criticism, and you can respectively be like, hey man, like that was really good, but try this next time, or do this next time. And it's, pardon my French, but it's fucking working. Like I haven't felt that sense of community, camaraderie, and brotherhood for a long time. And it is one of the most powerful things in the world, dude. Like that right there is going to pull us back from the brink if more people can do that shit. And it doesn't have to be rifle work. It doesn't have to be CQB, although I would highly encourage it. It doesn't have to be not.
Jeremy, don't go any further. It could be learning how to cook. It could be gardening.
Exactly. And it's like, dude, like find that group, guys. Like that's what I'm saying, is find that group, because to me, this is almost mildly emotional, but like, when you found it. That's all I'm going to say. And Mark can attest to that. When you found it. So on that, Mark, unless you have something left, this is it, guys. We will see you on the next one. And we have so much coming your way. I look forward to this podcast. I know Mark does. And we can't wait to bring all these discussions to you guys. And we can't wait to share these experiences with you guys and have you guys participate and be interactive and stuff like that. So on that, I wish everybody a fantastic rest of your day.
Hats off to everybody. Yeah, you got to have I'm going to bring this back to. I should have said this earlier. Sorry, as you were saying goodbye. Men used to. There was a day where we were men. We didn't wear our hats inside. We stood up when a woman walked into the room. So I'm going to bring that back. We're wearing our hats right now in the video, but here, you're saying goodbye. So hats off. All right, continue, sir.
Yes, absolutely.
Dude, you are balder than bald.
Yeah, I should do it. I bick my head.
Dude, you are balder than me. That is so shiny.
Yeah, I bick it, bro. Yeah.
All right, Jeremy, take us out. You're nailing it, sir. I'm sorry. Your shiny head just made me laugh. I apologize.
Yeah, no. So that's all I got for you guys. I believe that's all Mark has for you. Again, we'll see you guys down the road. We got another one coming this week yet still for you guys. And we will be elaborating on the documents and all of that stuff around those documents. and the leaks and all of that stuff. It's going to be a good one. There's a lot of nuanced conversation, but look out for that. This one's going to drop really soon. So on that note, that's all I got for you. I hope you guys have a great rest of your evening, day, whatever it is when you see this, and we will see you on the next one.
All right. My last question is, do we want to use this moment to come up? So whoever watches this first episode will be privy to this. Do we want to have an outgoing statement? Do we want to, like, both of us salute everybody? Do we want to say, hey, what's our thing going to be? Or are we going to have a thing, or should we just not have a thing? What do you think?
We'll figure it out.
Okay. Yeah. All right. So for tonight, your shiny head and my shiny head, we'll just say goodbye to everybody.
Goodbye.
All right, boys and girls, I'm hitting the end button on this, and Jeremy just took us out. So we'll see you on the next episode.
Yeah.
Follow us, Instagram, YouTube, Rumble, maybe Twitter. But stay tuned. But more importantly, if you like this video, this is my final comment. Mm-hmm. Share it with as many people. Don't just watch the video. We have to start working together. We have to start being like these crazy motherfuckers who like burn down cities. And I'm not saying burn down a city. We have to start realizing that these algorithms are designed to work against us. We have to work within their systems to defeat their methodologies. Like this video, share this video, comment on this video.
Yeah.
And we got, and again, if there's only 10 of you that do this, well, then all 10 of you need to do it. I don't care if it's 10 people or 10 million people.
Yeah. Hell, even if you don't like it and you downvote it, it still gives us something. So
damn right. Although I don't know why you would downvote this unless you were a fucking communist. All right.
All right.
All right. We got to come up with a tagline for the ending, though, because I want to turn it back over to you and like have you, because I'm about to hit end recording. You got to come up with something. Come on, man. What do you got?
Be a man. No, I'm just kidding.
It's not bad.
No.
How about just be real? How about
be authentic?
See, that's good. Yeah, just be you. Be authentic. Just be you.
Yeah.
How about that?
Be authentic.
Yeah. So for the people who watch episode 1, we'll see if this is what we say at episode 10. But I like that. Be authentic. I like that, Jeremy. I do. I like that. All right, we're done, boys and girls. This is the end. This concludes episode 1, Mission Critical Podcast. Thank you for watching.
Yeah.
Jeremy, I'll give you a call. I really am going to end it here. I'll call you when we're done. But for everybody else, whenever you see this video, thank you very much for taking 2 hours out of your life. We're going to be better at this in the future.
Yep.
We totally went a little bit off script here tonight.
Yep.
We're going to try to, what are we saying, Jeremy? An hour to an hour and a half. That's our goal in the future.
I would say at least an hour and a half. No, we're probably no more. So
no more than an hour and a half, right?
The only time that would deviate is depending on who we have on. If it's a really nuanced conversation, it may go a little bit longer, but hour and a half. So.
Hey, if we get Tucker Carlson on and he wants to talk for 3 hours, guess what? We're talking for 3 hours.
Yeah.
Yeah. Plain and simple.
Yeah.
I mean,
why not?
Yeah. Well, shit. If we had, I just said Tucker Carlson because of recent events, but if we had Hillary Clinton on for 3 hours, I would probably keep her on for 6 hours because I would want to make sure I knew where she was. So then I knew there wasn't any ninjas around me that were going to kill. I don't want to get killeried, right?
Yep.
All right, boys and girls. Hey, everybody, no matter where you are, final thing, Jeremy took us out. I'm because I'm an idiot and I kept talking, but hey, seriously, thank you for watching our podcast, episode 1, wherever you are in the world. Thank you. Merci, gracias, dankeschön, Ohio.
Just to piss people off.
What's that?
Das Vidonia.
Dos Vidania. Yeah. There's a shit ton of people who speak Russian.
Yeah.
I'm not. If that pisses you off because we said something in Russian, then don't watch these podcasts because you're an idiot. So, all right, everybody, have a great night. Thank you for watching episode 1 of Mission Critical Podcast. Stay tuned. We're going to, we might be able to get one more in this week otherwise, but probably starting next week. We're going to do 2 a week. So just
Yep.
stay tuned. And thank you very much. Leave a comment below. More importantly, if you want to win a free Modus second gen canteen carrier, answer Jeremy's goddamn questions.
Yep.
He is a constitutional pain in my ass. But answer those questions and give us something funny, and we'll go from there. All right, Jeremy.
All right.
High five to you, sir. Thank you very much. All right.
All
God
right.
bless you. God bless America. God bless everybody out there. All right. Everybody take care. See you later. Woo!
Yes.